Hi, I'm Tom Migot from Tom Migot Photography. Roughly about a month ago, I did a video informing you guys of the new Adobe Lightroom 6, and since then I've done a few videos talking about some of the amazing features that you find in that new version. Well, about 24 hours ago now, Adobe has released its new version of the Creative Cloud. We went from CC 2014 to CC 2015, which is about time given that we are the 17th of June 2015. Well, with that new release, there's a bunch of new features and enhancements across the board, across all the applications found on the Creative Cloud, including Adobe Lightroom and Photoshop. I'm not going to talk to you about Photoshop today, given that I've started a new series learning Photoshop, and I don't want to confuse you guys and jumping horses and bringing you new features that require a certain level of understanding of Photoshop before you can fully appreciate them. However, I want to talk to you about Lightroom because we have three new features in that new release. And the first one is called the Dehaze functionality. As the name implies, it will help you dehazing your photograph, which means removing any fog, haze that you would have in your photo. And to illustrate this, I'm using a photograph that I've captured last year of what's called the Queen's View here in Scotland. It's near Pitlochry. And the name comes from the fact that Queen Victoria used to spend quite some time in the region and allegedly loved the scenery and spent quite some time admiring the view. And I can totally understand that. And you see, I shot this into sunset, and therefore the light was in front of me, and because we have a lot of water as well, the air was pretty humid, and you have this haze effect on the photograph, which, to be fair, does not bother me much, but I thought it was a good candidate to illustrate this new functionality. So this functionality is obviously in a develop module and is found inside the effects panel under the post-crop vignetting and the grain. And let's just move the slider to the right to actually apply the dehaze feature, and you'll see suddenly we're removing the haze. And for me, somewhere around here is actually pretty good. So what it does, and I can do the before and after. So this is after and this is before. I don't know how much you guys actually see on your screen. I'm recording this in HD, so hopefully you'll see it, but it's quite compelling. And the way it works, it basically reveals the contrast, adds clarity to the overall picture. It's a little bit as well as if you were using the highlights tool, so you know, the formerly known as the recovery slider from the basic panel here, to just bring it down to the left a bit, and also a little bit of vibrance, which will reveal some colors from the mid-tone. So I quite like the effect. It's quite remarkable, and because it increases the contrast, what you end up getting, if you really push the dehaze slider too much to the right, you end up getting some black clipping. So let me move it to the right, and you should see here on the screen now appearing the blue dots, and those appear in the photograph simply because I have the black clip alert here ticked at the top left corner of my histogram. But for those of you who might not be using that functionality of the black clip, the tip is that while you actually click on the slider, the dehaze slider, you can hold the Alt key and suddenly you have a white mask. And what the white mask does is revealing where you have some black clipping. And it's not perfect, to be honest. I'm not convinced that is the best way, simply because if I actually slightly move down, so to the left, now there's no dots, nothing on this mask. But if I actually release everything, well, suddenly you still see the clipping over here. So, but anyway, you need to, the goal here is like everything, you have to do some subtle changes, and for me, going down around 36, 37 give me a very compelling result, which I quite like, to be honest. So that in that example, we basically removed some of the haze from the photograph, and that's pretty compelling. But sometimes you may want to add haze in your photograph for creating purposes, and for those of you who actually know my work, you may have noticed that I'm quite fond of adding a matte layer on top of my images, especially for portraits. And you can almost achieve the same thing using the Dehaze feature. And to show you that, I'm just going to a portrait that I've captured last year of my daughter. This is straight out of the camera. There's no edit whatsoever. And what I would like to do is I'm going to move to a black and white version of this just so you could really see the effect. And already I prefer the black and white version right away. But let's move the Dehaze slider now, not to the right but to the left. And what you see, we have suddenly a layer, a matte layer appearing on the photograph. And then you can choose the level of haze you want in your photograph. But for me, it's all about doing something really subtle, and I quite like it. It's a little bit dreamy, and you could play maybe with colors and so on, obviously not on the black and white version, but then you can move the sliders to play with your contrast, and I quite like it. You could also add a little bit of highlights, priority, so post vignetting, positive post crop vignetting, and just doing to add a little bit of dream. And if I'm now going turning the light off like this, it's not for everybody's taste, but for me, I quite like the result of it. So but just let me know what you think of this. So that is the first functionality. The second functionality that you find, and I'm not going to show you exactly how it works because you are quite familiar. Have you ever noticed that in the basic panel, under shadow, you have the white slider and you also have the black slider? What it does, let me go back in time, and let me just, actually, I should stay on black and white to show you that. If I move the black slider to the left, I'm basically darkening my blacks. So that's why I'm start having some black clipping here on the eyes, but you see, it start really darkening my blacks. And obviously, subsequently, if I move to the right, then it brightens my black. Well, the white is the same thing, but for the white, so if I just bring it down, it's going to change the level of brightness of my white, and same increasing, making brighter if I go to the right side all the way to clipping. Well, there's a functionality that is really very interesting, and it was lacking when you use the brush tool. But now with the new version from the Creative Cloud 2015, you now have both white and black in the brush tool, and you have it also for the radial filter as well as the gradiated filter. So it's quite interesting to have this new feature. It was really missing, I found sometimes. So let me know in the comments what you think. It wasn't very clear for you to actually see the before and after, so don't worry too much about this. There's a link, as usual, in the description of this video pointing to my blog. You know, I always write an article for every video that I've ever published since 2012. And so you can find all the pictures that I've just showed you with before and after, and you can even leave a comment. So let me know in your comment what you think. Are those features interesting? Do you think you would actually use them? So until next time, this is Migot saying, if you like it, well, capture it. Ciao.